Taking good notes is one of my biggest flaws, and I intend to fix that. So let's talk about it. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner. Welcome to the RPG Daily, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. Today we're talking about taking notes as a GM, or DM, however you prefer to call it. This, I think, for me, is one of the most difficult things I have to do as a game master, and I think a lot of people find themselves in the same situation, not taking enough notes at the table during the session, and thus forgetting things later. But if you remember a couple weeks back, I mentioned in another video about session prep that I was going to develop a method for taking notes, a system, and this is the beginning of me figuring out that system. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about why we want to take notes as a GM versus rely on one of the players. We're also going to be talking about some of the hurdles that come up with taking notes during a session, and some of the goals we want our new system of note-taking to provide for us. So when we question why we want to take notes at the table, the obvious answer that comes up is so we can remember things. And yes, this is the perfect answer. This is why we take notes, so we can remember details later on down the lines. But there are some reasons where I would say a DM's notes are more important than just having access to the player's notes, for example. In two of my campaigns, actually, I have a player who takes the most detailed notes that I can ever want. And I have access to those notes, the whole party has access to those notes, and so I can always go and look at those. But here's why I need to take my own note. The main reason is that I may have presented something in a way that the players heard differently, or I may have have some secret behind my notes that the players don't know yet, and so it's best if I write it down and I know what I'm intending by the notes. The players might see things, or they might have missed something in the conversation, so they might not have a note that is actually important for the DM, whereas if I'm the DM, I know what's important for the notes, and I can take that note. This is why I say it's better for the DM to have their own notes and the players to have theirs, and not have them be the exact same set of notes. But to write notes in a session, there are several hurdles that come up. Things like, we're having too much fun in the game and we forget to write a note. That's a great problem to have, and I don't think there's any way to fix that one. You just keep having fun, and we can work on faster ways to write notes, and then we can try to remember. One big one is taking the moment to write a note down might take us or the players out of the immersion of the story, which we don't really want to do. I know for me as a DM, I would rather stay immersed in the story as long as possible and not have to stop and write down a note. Same goes for the players. If the DM has to pause and say, hold on, I gotta write this down, and they write something down, that might suck the players out of the immersion of the story. So it takes time, and it could pull us out of the game, and at the same time, even when we do take notes in that manner, they might not be detailed enough for us to remember further down the line. So these are, at least for me, these are the common reasons why I don't take notes. I forget to, I don't want to break the immersion of the game, and I'm usually afraid that my notes are not going to be detailed enough, so I need to write detailed notes, which takes more time and pulls us out of the story. There's a lot of hurdles there. So we have to set some goals for this system that we're going to create. The first goal I have is that my system has to be as unobtrusive as possible, meaning I should be able to write the note without the players even noticing that I'm writing a note down, or minimal notice of me writing down a note. I also want it to be something that I do during the game. I don't want to take an hour or two after the game to try and remember everything that happened, because I would rather have just a quick note and be done. Of course, the notes then should help us remember important events of the game. That's the entire purpose for them. But they also need to be detailed enough so we can look at them and know exactly what was going on in that time, that they can jog our memory. These details will help us prepare for upcoming sessions. If you remember in my session prep video, I talked about having to recap the previous session before I start my prep. So that's what these notes will be helpful with. And the last thing is I would prefer a digital tool. I know there are two major camps. There are the digital camps and there are the analog camps where you have the paper notebooks and pens. And here's my problem is I love both of them. I love writing things down by hand. I think it's very calming and nice, and I tend to remember things better. But the problem is I also live in a one-bedroom apartment with my wife. I don't have a ton of space. I'm running a business out of this place at the same time. I don't even keep books. I don't have D&D books. I have a few of the newer ones, and the other ones I get rid of because I have the digital copies. So I try to minimize my physical space requirements by using digital tools. So for me, for my system, it is going to be a digital tool. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first one is the space requirements, takes up much less space. Other one is I have terrible handwriting. It's like chicken scratches. I write worse. I think I have worse handwriting than a doctor. And the other side of this is digital brings some searchability function to it, which I really like. If you have paper notes, and I've done a lot of paper notes, it becomes near impossible to find what you're looking for in the moment, where a digital note, you could use search functions of the tool to write your notes. And I think that is an invaluable reason to have digital notes, especially for the game master, when you might have to look up something from sessions and sessions ago that might not be on the forefront of your mind anymore, that you might have to search for it instead of just flip through page after page of book. So those are kind of my requirements of building this system. If you come back in the next video, I'm going to show you the beginnings of what I came up with. I've started using a digital tool called Obsidian. I'll go into why I chose that, why I'm working with it, and then I will show you kind of what I've built up thus far, and then we'll take some time to look at how it's actually working for me in game. That is the beginning of how to make some great DM notes. I hope you come back for the next video to learn more. I've been Richard. Thanks for watching.